Okay, Vicky, we are now live.
Great, thank you. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 12:03 p.m. And I'd like to start by reading our land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaty signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. So next we have the roll call, and I can no longer see the screen because I'm actually have the agenda in front of me. I did not see Councillor Cleary. Is he there now?
I'm here.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Councillor. And Mr. McQueen?
Yes, I'm here.
Valeria Lara?
I'm here.
Marvin Rosario?
Yes, I'm here.
And Jennifer, I think I saw you as well.
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. I know Renee is not here because she's on an airplane on her way back from vacation. Isaac, are you here? Oh, okay. I guess Isaac didn't make it and Dorothy is here. So next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from September the 11th. Are there any requests for corrections or amendments to those minutes? Okay, hearing none, I will ask for a mover and a seconder on the following motion: that the minutes of September the 11th, 2023 Investment Policy Advisory Committee meeting be approved as presented and amended. Somebody move that, please.
I think Marvin.
That was Councillor Cleary who moved it?
No, Marvin actually, but I'll second it.
Marvin. Okay, thank you, Councillor. Are there any further questions or comments? Or are we ready for the question?
Yeah. Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed
Aye.
say nay. Okay, motion is passed. So business arising out of the minutes, we have none. I'm also going to call next for a declaration of conflict of interests. Does anyone have a conflict that they wish to declare?
Sorry, Chair, I think you skipped over approval of the order of business.
Oh, did I?
Yes.
Sorry about that. We'll go back to the approval of the order of business. Sorry, I have too many monitors going here. We will move on to the approval of the order of business. Are there any additions or deletions, Dorothy?
No additions or deletions have been received through the clerk's office.
Great, thank you. And are there any additions or deletions from the members? Okay, hearing none, I will ask for a mover and a seconder on the following motion: that the agenda of the December 4th, 2023 Investment Policy Advisory Committee meeting to be approved as presented. And now I will ask, are there any further questions or comments? Or are we ready for the question?
Happy to move that, Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Councillor Cleary. And do we have a seconder?
I can second it, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. And all those in favor signify by saying yay. All those opposed, no, sorry, let me stop. All those in favor signify by saying yay.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, and all those opposed say nay. Sorry, trying to rush you along through this. Sorry about that. A business arising out of the minutes, we have none. And now I will call for a declaration of conflict of interests. Does anyone have a conflict that they wish to declare? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the consideration of deferred business, of which we have none, and right into the reports. So we're going to review the Treasurer's report for the quarter ending September the 30th. And I'm just going to kind of breeze through this and pick out the high points. Obviously, we're not going to go through every single line. I think the high point here is that our operating and fund investment income for the 3 months ending September 30th was just a little over $3 million, and we had budgeted $2.5 million. The variance was essentially because we had some higher balances than we were anticipating. This kind of carries over from the previous quarter when we had a little bit more money come in then that we were expecting. So it just kind of carried over. The total investment income for the entire portfolio was 8.8 million, and that included all of the investment income for our operating fund, as well as our trusts, reserves, and all the related entities, so things like Halifax Water. The actual rate of return for the quarter was 1.18. We had projected 1.12, so we are a little bit above what we had projected. For the rolling 12 months ending September 30th, we actually met our projection right on at 4.18%. So moving into the individual portfolios, we have our money market performance. So income from the investment accounts gave us a quarterly return of 1.4 and annualized was 5.58. And if we use 5.22, which was essentially the average for the investment income for either BAs or BDN, so bankers' acceptance, bearer deposit notes, if we look at the difference between if we had bought those versus our bank accounts, we actually had an incremental income of about almost $400,000 for the quarter. Cumulatively, that works out to, I believe, about, cumulatively, we've got, from the different policy changes that we've done, we have 5.8 million when we expanded the non-government sector, which is the banks, obviously. We ended up with a total so far of 5.8 million, including 142,000 from this quarter. And then overall, we had another change that we made in 2019. And that change allowed us to take the operational cash requirements away from our sector weights. And that gave us another almost $3 million. Any questions on that before I move forward?
Yeah, quick one. The changes you're making, is that the changes you want to do to the policy?
Yes, we'll be discussing that next.
So those have already been implemented?
No, they have not.
Okay, thanks.
No, these are previous changes that we made. One was made in 2019, and I think the other one was in let me scroll back and see. Oh, it was quite some time ago. I think it was around 2012, 2013 that we made the other change. So it's been in place for quite some time. Okay, so moving into our government side, the rate of return for the quarter was 1.14, which when annualized gives us 4.56. However, our rolling return was 4.03, and that is because we had some lower returns earlier in the year when we were still buying T-bills at a lower rate before the Bank of Canada went up significantly. The average yield of a benchmark one-year T-bill was 5.16% over the reporting period. So that gives you an idea of, what that T-bill was for the entire reporting period. It has obviously gone up quite a bit. The variance obviously is attributable to a strong performance of the benchmark T-bill over the past 6 months. But we still have instruments that were held that we purchased when the benchmark was still only 4.3. Any questions on that before we move into bonds? No? Okay, so moving into the bond part of the portfolio, we've been discussing this for some time now, and it is slowly maturing. So we have fewer bonds in the portfolio during this quarter than we have in previous quarters, and they are continuing to mature. In fact, we have one in about 2 weeks. Because of those maturities, we've actually seen a weighted average yield go up to 1.26. It was around 1.18, I believe, in the last quarter. And that is because some of the ones that matured earlier were the lower values. The ones that were further out on the curve were the ones that had the higher yield. The remaining bonds, I think, once we finish with this December bond, I think the remaining bond is about 1.37. And it matures next June. So, again, not ideal, but we are going to hold on to these until they mature, and we are getting close to the end of them. So that moves us right into our overall results.
Sorry, can I ask a question on the bonds? Will we
Absolutely.
be reinvesting in any provincial bonds with the maturities, or we moving?
No, we actually are going to need the funding or the maturities primarily for operational purposes. We have, I think it's about 53 million coming in a couple of weeks. We always have a significant amount of expenditures this time of year. We always have our big month end, which is our month end expenditures range in about 40 million range. So I think the one that's coming due will probably be used to cover those month end expenditures. We also have looked at the bond value or the bond yields right now. They've gone down, unfortunately, from where they were at their high point. I was at a seminar actually not that long ago, I think just last week, and they're suggesting that maybe now isn't the time to get into bonds anymore. It was a few months ago. So we've actually, and I'll kind of talk a little bit when we get towards the end of what we've invested in more recently, but we're looking more at provincial T-bills for the government sector.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. That's a great question. Okay, so overall results, our money market, so that is excluding our bonds. We had a quarterly return of 1.35%. So that is essentially our T-bills and our bank accounts. The median was 1.25, which is what we have to meet according to the policy, or what we should be meeting. So we certainly met that, and we were above the 5th percentile. So very happy with those results. And for the 1 year rolling, we're 4.9. And again, that's just our money market. And again, exceeded the 1 year money market median, which is what we look at. HRM overall, we were 4.18 for the 1 year. And that is as a result of the bonds that pulled us down again. And for the 3 months, again, 1.18. Okay, so the bonds, again, our 3 month was 0.31, and our 1 year is 1.18. And again, that reflects the bonds from earlier in the year that were quite a bit lower. We do have some higher bonds yields still sitting in our portfolio, and we will be moving those out. So the benchmark for the bond market, the median was 2.25, and the 95th percentile was 1.61. Most of these bonds are sort of short term, so they're either 1 or 2 years in duration. The ones that we have been still carrying are more like 3 years. So there was quite a difference 2 years ago versus 3 years ago in the bond market, and that's why you see the delta there. Any other questions about the bonds before we move into what's happening now in the portfolio? No? Okay, so just to quickly review where we are so far this year, we had projected this quarter about 2.5 million. We actually landed at 3, just a little over 3, so we had a positive variance of 500,000. Our overall budget is 12 million for the year. We may be looking at projecting that a little bit higher because we are seeing that the Bank of Canada is probably not going to reduce their interest rate. And as the bonds roll off, we know we're going to be doing better on that side. And I was also going to talk a little bit about we've currently invested in T-bills that were over the 5% mark. They varied from, I think, 5.12 was our worst, up to about 5.21. So based on that, and those will be held for a minimum of about 4 months, I think is the shortest one, out to a year. So based on that, I'm feeling comfortable that we can probably up our projection a little bit in the operating investment income. So I'll be doing that probably in the next couple of weeks. And when you see the next report, you'll probably see that up a little bit.
Sorry, can I ask another question on that? What is the
Sure.
assumption on the annualized return in those income projections that are there now?
The assumption on the annualized return based on these ones? Oh, I believe it was about 4.5.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. a good question. I should know that off the top of my head, but I believe it was 4.5 we were looking at. We're probably going to be closer to about 4.7 is I think where we're going to be. So I will be updating it. Okay, ESG, again,
Sorry, I have a question.
Sure.
All right. Is there a percentage increase in the projection you're looking at comparing between the past year to last year, and then we're going into the next year and we're projecting to have an increase? So do you have a percentage increase on that yet?
So our budget for 24, 25, you mean?
Yes.
No, that's not finalized yet. I don't really have any numbers that I can, put a pin in right now. But we would be taking into consideration what our current portfolio looks like and what we expect the Bank of Canada to be doing when we do that final budget. Anything else? You guys are asking great questions today. It must be the snow. Okay, so ESG, again, we did our review. Everything looked okay. We don't have any concerns with our banking partners from an ESG perspective. And subsequent to the end of reporting quarter, what we're seeing is the Bank of Canada has maintained the overnight rate at about 5% or at 5%, which is what we expected. However, what we did notice during deliberations, they're finding that the monetary policy is working kind of slowly. They wanted it to come in a little bit faster or to have an effect a little bit quicker than it did. They said they may end up having to raise it a little bit again, but then they're sort of backing off from that again. So more recently, we have seen the governor of the Bank of Canada has said that we're likely going to be staying where we are. And he also indicated that we should be ready for higher interest rates to become the norm. And the quote that he used was for the stability and resilience of the financial system. So I think what we're going to see is instead of seeing a Bank of Canada rate around 2.25 or 2.5, we may see it sitting at 3.5 to 4. And that's going to, of course, affect our investment income because that's what most of our investments are related to. We will continue to monitor this guidance. We are expecting that in mid-year, probably in July, we will start to see the Bank of Canada's overnight rate retreat. There's varying forecasts right now of how quickly it's going to retreat, and so that's what we're going to be keeping an eye on. But we do expect it to come down. And we will continue to balance a portfolio with the government sector instruments in the form of provincial T-bills and bonds. So we met our objectives this year. This quarter, sorry, there were no loss of capital. We did not incur any overdraft charges. We had sufficient cash available to meet all of our operational requirements. And we did achieve a competitive return on the investments for our money market part of the portfolio. And then the last part of this report just goes into the various economic conditions over the quarter, which I think we don't really need to review too much because I'm sure anybody who's been watching the news knows what's going on with that. So do we have any questions on this before we move on? Okay. So I think we'll just move now into the motion. I think I'm missing something here, Dorothy. Oh, there it is. Sorry. We will move that the Investment Policy Advisory Committee recommend that the Audit and Finance Standing Committee forward the Investment Policy Advisory Committee report quarter ending September 30th, 2023 to the Halifax Regional Council for information. Are there any other questions from the members of the committee?
I'm happy to second that, Councillor, or I'll put it on the floor, Councillor Cleary.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, we're going to need a seconder for the motion.
I can
Sorry, you
second.
Thank you. We'll say Valeria. Okay, thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Valeria. All those in favor signify by saying yay.
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 Yeah.
And any opposed, please signify by saying nay. And the motion passes. Okay, so next we're going to be moving on to the policy review. So this is something we only do once a year. I discovered that the past year it was done in September. I apologize. I thought we were normally doing these in December, so it's actually a little bit late. But in any event, I don't know if you've had a chance to review what that memo looks like. I'm just, again, going to quickly give you an overview of what we're looking at. There's really, there's three major areas that we wanted to revise. So the primary one is our sector weight for the financial institutions. I did a jurisdictional scan of 3 other municipalities. And what I discovered is they are all using at least 60% as a maximum for their Schedule I banks, where we are using 50 and have been for some time. We do feel that the liquidity is to our advantage. It's very easy to move money in and out of our financial institutions as we need it for operating. We would not change our counterparty limits. We would keep those as they are in order to maintain our risk level where it is for each counterparty. And we believe that this will also help us with our returns, because generally we find our bank accounts are doing quite well for us. So that's really the first one. The second one, and it's kind of related, is the ability to have equities in our portfolio. It's been sitting there for quite some time. We do not invest in equities. We have not since I have been deputy treasurer, round 1, which was from 2019. We probably will never have equities in our portfolio. It was limited to 5%. I think it makes sense to remove that 5% and just sort of roll that into the financial sector part. As we are increasing that by 10%, it's really kind of 5% would be coming from there, even though we're not currently using it. It would also mean that we would remove corporations as eligible counterparties, because we would not be investing in any corporations in equities. The third one is our benchmark, and this is something that we have been struggling with for some time now. We've had to essentially set up 2 different benchmarks, one for bonds and one for money market. And even those do not really give us a great match for what we have in our portfolio. The money market fund that we use now has a lot of instruments in it that we do not invest in. Commercial paper, for example, we do not invest in commercial paper. It also holds bonds, which we do have some bonds, but not as part of our money market financial sector. It's kind of a little bit different, and they are typically very short-term bonds. So again, not really what we have in that portfolio. We feel that the returns in general on that money market fund do not reflect what we have in our portfolio. From a treasury perspective, we usually just want to keep above the risk-free rate of return. That has been a sort of a mantra of treasuries worldwide. You really just want to keep up with your risk-free rate of return. We do not want to risk any capital, and the best way to do that is to look at that no risk or low risk rate of return. That is typically associated with a 3-month Canadian T-bill. And again, when looking at other municipalities, that is what they are using for their benchmark, is the 3-month Canadian T-bill yield. In fact, we used to use that many years ago. It was modified. I'm not quite sure why, but I think it was at the time the T-bill yields were very, very low. And I think they felt that it was too low of a benchmark for us to be using. Right now, I think it's a perfectly appropriate one for us to be using. So that's the third one. And the fourth one is our meeting schedule. Currently, we're meeting quarterly, as you know. The purpose of the committee is to provide us with some guidance around our investing strategy. And seeing as we only invest twice a year now, whereas in the past it was, could be daily, weekly, monthly, but we're now only semi-annually, we felt that it made sense for the committee to meet semi-annually as well, to coincide with when we would be doing our investments, probably just before we do our investments, which is around property tax time. So right now we receive taxes in April and October. So we would be looking to meet in March and September. We would still produce the quarterly investment report and the staff report and provide that for the committee for their review. And we would obviously still forward the staff report to the Audit and Finance Standing Committee and then on to Council. So our recommendations are, as I said, we want to increase to 60% for our financial side. We want to remove our corporations from our counterparty list, as well as the eligible investment of equities. We want to use the 3-month Canadian T-bill as our benchmark and to change our meeting schedule to be semi-annually. So I'm going to open the floor up for any discussion or any questions that you might have about any of that.
The only question I had was on the equities, and I think you may have answered it, but has HRM ever invested in equities in this portfolio? To your knowledge, I haven't. Yeah,
no, not to my knowledge. I mean, it's ironic because we actually moved offices in the last couple of months, and I had to pack up all kinds of old records. And in those records, I did not see any equities that were, I'll say, intentionally invested in. We do end up with equities in the odd situation, and we've been trying to liquidate them. For example, when Air Canada went into receivership many years ago, they actually owed us money at the time for, I believe it was when we had some kind of commercial tax for them, and as part of the restructuring, we were given some of their shares, which were worth next to nothing. But anyway, those were sitting in our portfolio for the longest time. They were worth, I think, $180 when we traded them. So I actually did get rid of them. So that's really about the only time that we've had shares. We had another situation with and I can't remember now what that one was, but something similar where we ended up with shares being given to us in because of a debt. But we don't intentionally
if that happens again, you would have a procedure that would liquidate those shares with this policy now, procedure that would liquidate those shares.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing that anyway because it's just not worth holding on to them. I mean, like I said, the shares that we received I don't know how much Air Canada owed us. I was trying to find that out, but we felt it was a couple of $1,000 and we got $180 out of the share. So we got about 10 cents probably on the share or on the dollar for what was owed to us.
Okay. No, makes
it just
sense.
Doesn't fit with our, there's too much risk to our capital, as you know, if you invest in equities. So it just does not make sense. It is not consistent with our objectives. So it doesn't make sense to be there.
Okay. That's all.
Okay. Valeria, did you have any questions?
No, I think you kind of answered them as you went through. So thank you for that.
Okay, good. Jennifer?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there are a list of investments that we are not supposed to be doing aside the equity.
Well, we don't really have a list of what we can't do. We just have a list of what we can do. It is in the back of the investment policy. So if you scroll through to the back of the document, I think you'll see a marked up copy of it. Essentially, what we can invest in is where is it? Our counterparties are limited to essentially the government sector. So the Canadian government or provincial government, that's our counterparties, as well as Schedule I banks. And that is limited only to Schedule I banks that have either an R1 high or an R1 mid credit rating. So we're limited to very few banks, obviously the big five plus a few others. For our eligible list of investments, we have bankers' acceptance, bearer deposit notes, so that's our BA, BDNs, treasury bills. We do have commercial paper on here. We don't typically invest in it, though. It is, again, a bit risky. Prom notes and T-bills are essentially the same thing, depending on what province you're dealing with. Bank subsidiary paper, we don't really need that because we use our bank accounts or high interest savings accounts as our financial institute part, half of the portfolio. Term deposits, we do have those there's one bank in particular that we use term deposits with, and GICs. We also are holding a number of GICs with banks. CMHC, mortgage-backed securities, and then we have our bonds and debentures. And that is federal, as well as we do have corporate in here, but we wouldn't ever be investing in corporate bonds or debentures. We would leave it at just the government half. Does that answer? Again, I can't tell you what we don't invest in, but equities would be the one thing we don't. That's kind of like a very high risk. And even though we can invest in commercial paper, we generally don't because, again, fair amount of risk with commercial paper. If the counterparty that you're dealing with as a corporation runs into financial difficulty, that commercial paper is not worth very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
I maybe this is more of a comment. So in the paragraph there in the recommendation, you refer to the counterparties that were removed last year. And that was in last year's policy that was approved, right?
Yes.
I read that and my immediate thought was we were removing more counterparties, but these are the ones we removed last year. Should they even be in this report, I guess would be my question.
Yeah, they probably don't need to be there.
Yeah,
I just added them to the reason why is because it's actually to a certain degree for similar reasons. The ones last year were removed because of ESG concerns. We couldn't get ESG reporting on them. And the same holds true with a lot of corporations that you might invest in. Some you can, some you can't. So from an ESG perspective, it becomes a little difficult. So that's why I lumped them together, but fair point. It is a little confusing. It makes it look like we're removing more than we actually are.
Yeah. Okay.
Marvin, did you have any questions?
No. Yeah.
No. All good?
All good.
Councillor Cleary?
Nope, all good over here.
Okay. So now we have a motion, and it is a long one, so you'll have to bear with me. That the Investment Policy Advisory Committee approve. Number one, the increase of the maximum portfolio limit of financial institutions to 60%. Number two, the removal of investment instruments of equities and corporations as counterparty. Number three, the adoption of the average yield of the 3-month Canadian T-bill as the benchmark for evaluating portfolio performance. And number four, the meeting schedule be changed to semi-annually from quarterly, with the quarterly investment report provided for review quarterly.
I'm happy to move that onto the floor.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
And I can second.
That was Marvin?
Yeah.
Thank you, Marvin. So now we'll ask for the question.
Question.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying yay.
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 Any opposed, please signify by saying nay. Yeah, motion passes. Thank you very much. And the next item on the agenda is the proposed 2024 meeting schedule.
Oh, sorry, Chair. I think there's a second part to that motion, which then forwards it to Audit and Finance.
Oh, sorry.
No problem.
Yes, you're right. I thought it was just repeated in here. So there's another part of the motion of this. Is it all one motion or is it two different motions, Dorothy?
It's one motion.
Okay. So do I need to go back and restate the motion?
I would say yes.
Okay. So let's do this again. I apologize. It's in here twice with the exact same wording, and I honestly thought it was just a repeat. So the Investment Policy Advisory Committee approved the increase to the maximum portfolio limit of financial institutions to 60%, the removal of the investment instrument of equities and corporations as a counterparty, the adoption of the average yield of the 3-month Canadian T-bill as the benchmark for evaluating portfolio performance, and the meeting schedule be changed to semi-annually from quarterly, with the quarterly investment report provided for quarterly review. And also that the Investment Policy Advisory Committee recommend that the Audit and Finance Standing Committee recommend that Halifax Regional Council approve amendments to the investment policy to, 1, increase the maximum portfolio limit of financial institutions to 60%, 2, remove equities and corporations as a counterparty, 3, adopt the average yield of the 3-month Canadian T-bill as the benchmark for evaluating portfolio performance, and 4, change the meeting schedule of the Investment Policy Advisory Committee from quarterly to semi-annually, with a quarterly review of the investment report, period. Okay, apologies for that again. Are there any questions?
No, but Councillor Cleary's willing to put that second part on the table as well.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cleary. Do I have a seconder for that?
I second
Same.
that.
Okay, so now we will have the vote. Right, Dorothy? Are we good for the vote now?
Yes, we're good for the vote now.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying yay.
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 All those opposed signify by saying nay. No nays, the motion is carried. Okay, now we will move on to the proposed 2024 meeting schedule. I do watch council quite a bit, and Councillor Cleary, you're very good at this. I guess I need to watch it a bit more in order to get this just right. So the Investment Policy Advisory Committee approved the 2024 investment policy. Dorothy, I have to read this again quickly because I think there's, oh, it's okay, I see. The Investment Policy Advisory Committee approved the proposed 2024 Investment Policy Advisory Committee meeting schedule as outlined in the staff memorandum. Are there any questions?
I'll put that on the floor, Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Councillor Cleary. And a seconder?
Jennifer?
Thank you, Jennifer.
Just a quick question. So this one obviously has the quarterly dates. And if Audit and Finance and Council approve the semi-annual schedule, which one of these or which two of these dates would be the semi-annual, or will you come back with different dates?
The dates will be the March and September dates.
Okay.
Yep. So again, to coincide with the taxes, we want to make sure that we have it. Okay. So we're ready for the question.
Question?
All those in favor signify by saying yay.
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 All opposed? All opposed? None? Motion carries. All right, added items. None? We didn't have any added items, Dorothy? Okay, the date of the next meeting, as approved, will be March 4th, 2024. Again, to Councillor Cleary's point, that the entire schedule next year may change, but we do know for certain that there will be one March the 4th. And can I have a motion to adjourn?
Would that be virtual or physical?
I'm sorry, Jennifer?
Would the next meeting be virtual or physical?
Yes, it will be. Yeah, the March meeting will be virtual as well. What we will do with if it's approved to go semi-annually, we'll have the March one virtually, and we'll have the September one in person. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Unless if there's any questions first.
So moved.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cleary. Great. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. I know this was a long one, but certainly do appreciate you taking the time. And we will see you March the 4th. And I'll see you in January, Councillor Cleary.